Welcome to the Pastors Podcast Season 8. And Becky, you know what that means? There's 7 seasons. If you've not listened to them, go binge all of them.
Yeah, I hope there'd be 7 seasons if there's been season 8. You're not
somebody should do the math of how long that would take you to binge all 7 seasons. We do the math on like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You know, they have like...
You do?
Oh, yeah, you've done the math on if I sat down and watched
all
all of the Lord of the Rings, including The Hobbit and the extended edition. It's all online. You just look it up.
Chat.
It would take like 2 straight days or something like that. Some crazy stats. So somebody somewhere needs to send me how long.
Because this podcast is as popular as the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Oh, I would say that, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely,
I mean, in my head it is for sure. Great to have you with us. This is really, we are pastors in the trenches of the local church, just believing God for revival in our city and want to do whatever we can to come alongside and strengthen pastors. Anybody who's in the trenches really building a local church, we're excited to come alongside you. Today I'm stoked because I have friends. I was thinking about this the other day that just ministry's better with friends. That's what I've decided. So, Jeremy, we were talking about how long we've known each other. It was back, we'll bring up your youth conference days.
Ammunition
but how long ago was that? Would that have been?
Maybe 15 years ago?
Yeah, 15 years ago or something like that. So walk through a ton and just so excited to have both of you on. We're going to introduce you in just a minute. But Becky, great to have you on. We are recording again here at the second weekend of the Awakening Youth Conference. And it's just as strong as the first weekend.
It really
it's
is.
wild what God's doing. I was telling our church this. There's a little bit of like kind of hype time in it as far as like a little,
Icebreaker,
bit
of excitement.
But outside of that, it's just straight red meat. Like it's just straight worship for an hour, hour and a half, preach for 45 minutes to an hour, then go back into another hour, hour and a half of ministry.
Yeah.
And these kids are going for it. It's something else, man.
It's amazing.
So I love seeing it. I shouldn't be surprised. Like I feel like
you've been doing this for a while.
But still, it's crazy how hungry they are and how they really will go all in.
Yeah.
And it's however long it is, 36 hours or something of just straight, let's go after God.
And I had a youth pastor tell me last weekend, he said, we go to a lot of youth conferences. As a youth pastor, you're trying to find things to bring your youth to ignite them. And he said, there is nothing like this. He said, no hype, no entertainment. He said, it's just straight raw presence and power. And I think that's surprising. I think in the climate right now where there might be heavier entertainment or maybe watering it down for the next generation. And I think they're showing up going, we don't want that anymore. We need
Jeremy,
it all.
you would have grown up in the human videos. We need to bring back human videos.
I did not grow up.
Problem is, Becky didn't grow up in youth groups, so she missed those 90s kind of like... Yeah, the human videos.
I don't know if I missed anything, you guys. By the way you all talk about it, you all seem a little traumatized.
I have nothing but fond memories about those days.
Michael W. Smith, The Place in This World,
Yes.
I did it in Peru.
Yes.
I was on missions and I was the girl.
I literally have nothing but fond memories.
Yeah.
We look back and go, that felt so cheesy. I'm like, all I remember is I have nothing but fond memories.
Is listening to it out of season. So like people tried to show me Carmen after it was a thing. And I'm like, it's not timeless. I'll tell you that. It's not timeless.
Sure.
Yeah, Carmen.
They're like, this was so awesome. Isn't this
It's
powerful?
not like U2 or Coldplay.
Yes, I was like, well, that was a thing for sure.
Yeah, that's how it works.
I'm glad you liked it.
Well, it's great to have Jeremy and Christy Johnson on the podcast with us. Yep. Guys, I was thinking you may be the first married couple in ministry to be on the podcast together. So
we're 20 years married.
This is either going to be phenomenal or a train wreck. So there's no in between.
We have
or maybe
opposite
both.
ideas of ministry.
Yes, totally. So actually, we brought you here today to do a little bit of counseling. Actually, I was telling Jeremy about you guys being on today, and he kind of said that you have no problem like calling him out on stage. It sounds like you put him on.
Do
you put him on? No, you. Well, you're preaching. Do you kind of put him on blast?
I'm
every
trying to throw him
Sunday
under the bus because it kind of makes people laugh. So then
Anything for a laugh.
anything
oh my gosh.
at my expense.
At his expense, But
Tear me down.
Whatever
all
it
the
takes
way.
to grow the church. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and it's constantly brought up that I broke up with you.
Yeah, he did break up with me. And it was very hurtful.
This is coming up in this podcast.
Let's tell the story right now. We're about to get into this right now.
Hold on, they lead a church. Let's talk about their church.
Wait,
in LA.
what happened here? He broke up with you?
Yeah, like, can you? That's ridiculous.
The Lord spoke to me.
Yeah, he's like, the Lord spoke to him.
That was
She was a Jezebel. She
That
was
was
a
second
Jezebel, and the
heaven.
Lord
Second
said,
heaven revelation.
I wanted to be
Go
at
hide
the
in your
time I was
cave.
18. No, I was 21, and I wanted to be like a pop girl. I had some opportunities in Nashville. I wanted to be in this like girl group.
You can sing,
and
too,
so
and
he
preach.
kind of felt like I wasn't ready for marriage, which I wasn't. So then he broke up with me, but he said it was because the Lord told him instead of telling me
There's
the real
nothing better. There's nothing better than
Don't
when he
use
says the Lord told
the
me.
Lord, no. And then
He's
I
like,
went.
I'm serious.
I am a man
I'm for
that hears the
ministry.
Lord.
I lost all this weight. I went to like 95 pounds. I was like skin and bones. It got really serious. And then I was really depressed. And then years later, I moved on with my
2
life.
years later.
2 years later.
Wait,
I've been
this is
Wait,
a
you guys were
long
not together
breakup.
for 2 years.
2 years. I moved on
This
with my
wasn't
life.
like a week
In like
later.
college. This is like
my
he started
gosh.
having like dreams about me, I think.
She moved on. She said, I moved on. She was
I
She
like,
moved. We
on.
both moved on. Yeah, we had
well-
dated different
Wait,
people.
how'd you get back then?
He,
Wait, hold on. Let me back up real quick.
oh my God.
This is
So
the
listen,
podcast
you're
now.
21
I was 21 when
and
this happened.
you're
I'm at Bethany Bible College.
and you're 2 years older than her. Am I right with this?
1 year.
1 year. So you're 22, and you're zealous,
Yeah.
going after God, and then you got this girl who just wants
Yeah.
to be a pop star in Nashville
Yeah,
and
you
just
know-
do the carnal, fleshly thing.
Oh, it
and
was Christian.
you,
We cancel
oh, it's
that.
Christian.
We
Okay, never
cancel
mind
that
then.
identity.
And you're like, dude, you're not ready for marriage, and you break up with her because the Lord tells you to. I'm
Yeah.
putting air quotes up.
Yeah.
And so, wait, how did you circle back then?
After about 2 years, I think it just. I think honestly,
Did you
what
stay
it
in
was
touch
is
at all?
There
No,
was,
no, there was no Instagram at the
No.
time. There was no like
There was no
social
social
media.
media.
So
Oh.
we didn't have any way.
There
It
wasn't
was,
even
I felt like
MySpace.
he died.
yeah,
it
there's
felt
not
like a
texting.
death.
No texting.
yeah. There was pagers.
Yes,
That's all we had
yes.
back then.
So when
Wait,
he,
so how did it circle back?
so what, I thought you had dreams. I thought you had a couple dreams, and then you told your mom about them.
Yeah. I just couldn't get her out of my head. Like I dated other girls or whatever, and I just kept not finding someone that I liked as much as her. And I think we broke up honestly because she was
Selfish.
not ready.
He
She was
said I was
dealing with
selfish.
selfishness, and I was dealing with insecurity, and those two don't mesh very well.
Wow.
Welcome to every 21-year-old ever.
And so,
welcome.
I mean, to the point, like we just weren't on the same path. Honestly, we weren't on
Yeah.
the same path. She was on a path of doing that, and I was on
Yeah.
a path of ministry. And so then God, after all that time.
So how does this phone call
So
happen?
you- How
does the
Hey,
phone call
just
happen?
kidding.
You're at a camp, and the camp guy goes, "You just need to do it. You need to call her. How
Yes,
do I find
some
her
guy at the
number?"
camp said, "You just need to call
You
her."
said, "Just find it. Look it up on the internet." And so
I was preaching at a camp.
He
and
searched
one
on
of
the
the guys
internet.
I was talking to, the youth pastor or something.
I got a missed
Yeah.
call from Jeremy 2 years later. I was like, Jeremy's calling me. I couldn't believe he was calling me. I'm like, what is he
he told me
trying to
just call.
Oh,
So I
my
called. He
gosh.
said, "Of course she's not going to answer. So what you need to do, this is what the guy told me. You need to give it 2 days."
This guy's a dating guru.
Oh
He
yeah,
needs to-
I don't know. It's like
he's
an angel or
anointed.
something. Give it 2 days, and then call her again. She's not going to call you back, and the second time she'll answer. So I'm like, okay. So I gave it 2 days.
The dating whisperer.
And I called her back, and she answered. And we had a nice conversation, but that was it.
And then you said, "I never fell out of love with you."
No,
And
no,
then-
I didn't say
On the
that
first
yet.
call?
No,
Look
no,
at
no,
her.
that
She's
didn't
like,
happen.
you
No.
begged
Okay, all
me
right,
to
let's get the
conversation.
story right.
You
He
begged
goes
for me to
straight
take
in.
you back.
No, we had a nice conversation, and I was just like, "Oh, it's not it." That was an old thing, and I've started to try to move on, and then I was depressed at home in my house. I was graduated from Bible college, didn't have a job, working at Macaroni Grill.
Oh
Sure,
my God.
yeah.
And I'm talking to my mom, and I'm just like, I'm never going to find my wife. My sister was already married, Candace, who now has like 6 children.
Younger.
Yeah.
She was younger.
I thought they had like 9 children.
Yeah, maybe 9.
Every time you see him, there's
And,
more.
my mom said, "Were you honest with her when you called?" And I said, "Oh no, I just called." And she said, "You need to call her and put yourself out there." And so
Wow.
then that's the call. I called again, and I said, "Hey, this whole thing." And then I didn't know it was going to happen, and she said, "I feel the same way." And so then the rest is
I
history.
dated other people, but it was never.
And
Yeah.
you
the
were
same.
done in Nashville. You just didn't.
Yeah, she was living in Nashville.
It wasn't what I was supposed to do in
Yeah.
life. I knew
Yeah.
when I was
Yeah.
pursuing that. It was
Wow, you guys, and now
So-
here you are, 20 years later, 3 kids,
Incredible,
leading
guys.
a church in Los Angeles.
Worth the whole podcast right there.
podcast.
Well, I'd like to know who the guy was, so maybe we could just get his information out there for people that are
get it
wanting
out
to
there
figure
for
out
the
how to
dating
get
guru.
married.
He was the guy at camp that could do this double backflip off the rope
Yes,
swing.
of
Wow.
course.
He was
And-
like that
and-
guy. You know?
And
So
give
I had to listen to him.
phenomenal
Yeah, just
women
Charisma.
man
advice.
of God. He knew what he's doing.
I love it. Well, listen, both of you guys are preaching this weekend at our conference. Phenomenal job. Both sessions were so good. It's funny because I say this, I've said this publicly online, that Jeremy is one of my favorite preachers, and I don't just say that. I legitimately, not just a friend, but I love your preaching, Jeremy. And so I don't know if I ever told you this, Becky, but I would keep getting these DMs from somebody who was sending me clips of Jeremy preaching. So Jeremy would post a reel, and then you know how somebody can send you the clip. This guy kept just, like, all the time. I would just get a DM from somebody who was sending me, there's no context around it. There was no like, hey, I thought you'd enjoy this, or just a clip of him preaching.
There you go.
So finally I took a screenshot and I sent it to Jeremy. I said, dude, somebody really likes your preaching. I'm like, somebody is your biggest fan and is just constantly sending me clips of you preaching. And so I sent it to him, and he texts back and goes, that's my dad. He said, that's my dad. He's just sending out clips of
Because he
me
goes to our
preaching.
church, right? Yeah.
Yes, I know his dad. Like, I know his dad,
Yeah,
but
but
for
it's
some
hard to see
reason,
the Instagram.
Well, for some reason, when I looked, I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. Why?
my
I was like,
God.
why does he keep sending me clips of Jeremy? I'm like, I'm all
Just
for
no one
it.
else, just me.
Yeah, I'm like, why does he keep sending me a clip of Jeremy
like, you need
preaching?
to listen to my
and then
son.
I thought, and
That's
I
awesome.
was like, dude, you know what? If you have a dad, that's the type of
That's
dad
the
you
dad.
want right
That's it.
there. Just the dad's just
Clappy
sending out.
hands and
Just
praise
That's right.
hands. And
Is he your
That's
biggest?
awesome.
Is he your biggest fan?
Oh, he's the biggest fan.
Yeah, for
Him and
sure.
my mom. Yeah, every time I put anything up, he's got the
And
clappy
me.
hands or the praise hands.
You're-
And I'm like,
You've
yeah.
got a good Instagram dad too, though. I mean, Larry Leap's showing up on Instagram for
they
you.
do.
With a
My
post.
dad's very positive. So,
Very positive on Instagram.
so I'm just excited to have one of my favorite preachers on the podcast today,
That's
and I
awesome.
got a lot of his
Oh.
preaching clips in my DMs if you want to see them. So, hey, you guys planted a church how long ago in downtown LA?
11 years ago.
Almost 12 in September.
Almost 12. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, almost 12. Our daughter, who's 12 years old, she was born when we moved to plant the church.
Wow.
So let me ask you a really big question that is going to
Yep.
be probably a way long answer, but and it's maybe an unfair question because it wasn't just downtown LA, it was COVID as well that you had to walk through. But I'd love to hear from both you guys right now. What's the two things that come to mind? Because so many people that are pastoring in the suburbs, or not in that urban culture, not in that downtown. I mean, downtown LA is downtown LA. It's different. Like, what's the top two things you learned about planting a church in downtown LA? And I guess if you've never been to downtown LA, it'd be a little bit hard to fully understand what it is. But it's not the suburbs. It's not where we planted.
Was it what you expected?
No. We watched the Stephen Furtick, This Is How I Changed the World, and in 5
Yeah.
years he's in this big
And we
arena.
thought that was going to happen to
and,
us too.
Oh.
You know,
We're
a
like,
move of God from the Easter outreach, and we tried that Easter outreach to see the move of God. I think,
And you
I
found
would
out
say
that
right
California is not North Carolina?
yeah, and I'm not Stephen Furtick.
Yeah,
you know?
well, two things. We got two things going on
things
here.
wrong. I try. You know,
There were two things that
Two
weren't in the
things
equation.
That just didn't. I think off the top of my head, and Christy may have two different things, but the two things that I would say is number one, if I could talk to my younger self, is don't quit. And we didn't quit, but that was one thing. If you're going to go to a place,
Was it harder than you thought then?
yeah, it almost killed me several times, you know, and I think those moments that felt like the end were actually the beginning of many new things
powerful.
that if we wouldn't have pressed through. And now I learned that in those moments that others quit, that's the moment God's going to actually bless you if you keep going. And we've seen that through COVID. We've seen that through the fires that just happened. It's like if you don't quit, you win. And there's a promise to those who don't quit, and that doesn't mean you're not going to feel like quitting. I was just on a podcast recently, and we talked about quitting, and one of my friends said, "I've never felt like quitting." And I was
wow.
like, "Well,"
Serious.
and he was dead
You're
serious,
kidding.
and
And we
I'm
thought
like,
there was going to be like an ending. I'm just kidding. We had all these pastors in there, and he said, "In 15 years, I've never felt like quitting." And I said, "Well, there's a lot. Most of us in here, we're a lot wired a lot different in this room, and things that maybe make you want to quit, or
yeah, not that you actually did quit, but many times that I wanted to quit was because I got too far ahead of God,
Yes.
not too far behind Him. Because I'm not a person. I made a decision. I'm not getting behind God anymore, but I'm running with God. But often I start adding things to what God said, things that sound good and sound right, and that's where I've burned out.
Welcome to Visionaries.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've had to relearn how to dream. And then I think the second thing is, last time I was here at your church, you said someone prophesied, it might have been Becky, that God was giving us like a key to LA, and there was like a lock, and we were
vault. Yeah, I saw that picture very
learning.
clearly.
God is teaching us how to hear when the vault clicked, the numbers are, and I think this last time through the fires that we had in LA that just wouldn't be put out, it kept being 0% contained. When it first broke out, I thought, God, I don't have the bandwidth for this right now. Like I don't, because after COVID,
like
you
another
knew what
COVID,
it took
yeah.
now to get through that. And I thought, God, I'm just not, I don't feel like going through this right now, and I'm not the right guy. And someone had texted me right after that prophecy, God's called you for this. Rise up, mighty man of God. You were born for this moment. And so something shifted inside me, that word of life that we got here and then that. And, through the elections, there was a moment where you either had to just kind of not talk about anything that was going on in the world, or you had to talk about it, right? You're kind of forced, not to choose a side, but forced to either state truth about certain things or to kind of, pretend like that's not happening outside. And I felt the Lord tell me to press in, and through that, some people had left our church. And after the fires, after us rising and just going out in like following the firemen into the flames and loving on people till they asked why, some of those people that had left our church because we started, not that we weren't preaching truth before, but we were just trying to walk in extreme holiness and repentance and calling people to a higher standard in Los Angeles. Some of those people ended up coming back to our church after they saw what we did in the fires. And it was almost like whatever lies the devil told them couldn't stick after they saw us love, tell people, asked why. And after that happened, I felt like God was saying to us and together, I've given you a key to win liberal, extreme cities, that there's a big agenda against truth and holiness, is in loving people so radically that it causes all the lies to fall.
Wow.
And just with acts of service, so it wasn't just about the people we were giving food to or opening our building for. It was about unlocking these Christians that had been lied to, that they couldn't deny the extreme love of Jesus in us when they saw it on full display. And I think that's a key to LA. I think it's a key to young adults, and our church hasn't. After that moment, our church has been exploding with growth.
It's amazing to me whenever you're talking, because you're having to make a decision. Hey, I'm going to do what the Lord's telling me to do. And as pastors, we're called to lead people, and we're called to care about people.
Yes.
But we're also not called to have. We live in an American society that somewhat says, "Hey, this is for the people, by the people." It's the people that lead ultimately.
Yeah.
It's the people that elect representatives to do what they want them to do. We live but in church, that's not how it's structured. It's not the biblical concept of church. And so my point is this: is that we're called to lead people. We're called to care about people. We're called to have a heart that's tender and yet obey God, even if it's not where people are wanting to go.
Totally.
It's just that line we walk of like, I want to really care about people, but I got to do what the Lord's telling me to do, and yet do it in a way that's not like kind of jerky.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's a difference
And whatever
between
the cost
caring
is.
about people and fearing people.
Yes.
And fearing man. And I think that was like what the Lord had to put on us,
Right.
is do you fear? Because there were several times when I had to preach a message and I had another message written just in case the Lord let me out of it.
Wow.
And I would wrestle with God in the back room. God, I know who's here. I know these people aren't going to accept this.
Wow.
Can I please preach this one that feels nice?
It won't lose people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think church is becoming more political. I think politics are becoming more spiritual. And so because there's been such a shift, it's almost put a demand upon the voices of leaders to, you can either be silent right now and not say anything, but people are leading. They're being led by so many other things. We have to, and I think the prophetic voices of our generation and pastors have been really, really silenced. They're listening to the crowd of going like, will I lose people? Will I lose tithers? Will I lose, popularity and all these things? There's a battle with that. And I think there's that thing between moral relativism and absolute truth. We know the absolute truth, but there's moral relativism with it, which is my truth is my truth. And this is what I believe. And then how I feel is is my truth. So we had to, in a season after 2020, really, really combat your truth is not the truth, right? And
All the time,
that's,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Oh, yeah. And that was stepping on.
And
I
you're-
mean, it was awkward. It was like we were preaching stuff that was like, they're like, but this is what I believe to be true because of my experience. Well, that doesn't mean it's true,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So
And you guys are like in the epicenter, really. I mean, really, for people who are not familiar.
30 feet from the Staples Center
Right.
or Crypto
this
Center
is
now.
like, you know,
Yeah, we're in the
Babylon.
heart.
Like,
I
this
mean,
is like, this
We're
is
in the heart of
it.
culture, West
Yes.
Hollywood,
Yes.
LA. Now,
creatives.
yeah, and there's obviously tact and timing, but the Lord spoke to me at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. He spoke to me very clear, and he gave me this picture of like how mainstream news has become irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
It's like so politicized,
It's
right?
so-
you know,
yeah.
if you watch this station, you know you're going to get this propaganda. If you watch this station, you're going to. And he said to me, a whole generation is now getting their news from podcasters and
Yes.
influencers
Yeah.
because they tell the truth, even if people don't like it.
Wow.
And he said, if the church does not start telling the truth, a generation will leave the church
Yeah.
and consider the church like mainstream media.
Wow.
And he said, you look around, there's all these podcasts that are rising up, and maybe they're not even pastors, but they're saying a bold truth that people are drawn to. And he said, I want you to be bold about the truth.
On that note, I was talking to a young adult, and they were being sarcastic, kind of. They don't go to our church, and we were talking about their faith, and they're a believer, grew up in church. And I said, who's your pastor? Like, you know, they weren't at a church. I'm like, who do you consider your pastor? They were making some life decisions. And jokingly, but you know how that, when they say something jokingly, you're like, oh, you're serious. He goes, Joe Rogan. He said, Joe Rogan's my pastor. And I'm like, that,
Yep.
it's that. Like, wow, this person who is like, it's not about Joe Rogan or not.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that person, and it's the most popular thing right now, like in
Yeah.
the globe, listen to.
Yeah.
That they're going, that's the
It's
person that told me the
unfiltered.
truth. That's
Yeah.
the person who told me the truth. And I'm like, oh, that was a warning sign to me. I'm like, oh, pastors have to start telling the truth. We have
Yeah.
to offer something.
Yeah,
that
an
they're
unfiltered truth.
Yeah,
right? 'Cause
absolutely,
I
which
think
is
we're telling the
truth, which is
truth, but
scripture.
it's got like that Instagram filter on it
Yeah.
at times. At the beginning of the year, we preached a sermon called "Famous in Hell," and it's such a radical title. But it came from I was signing a book at a youth conference, and my son came, and he saw me signing books, and he afterwards he goes, "Dad, I didn't know you were famous." He said, "Can I get you to sign my book?" And I knew he only wanted me to sign his book because he wanted to sell it, because he's an entrepreneur.
What a kid, dude.
And he
What a
gets
kid.
things signed from athletes, and he wants to sell them. He wants, how much is it worth now?
That's
and I said,
amazing.
son, I'm not famous like that. And it just came out of my mouth. I'm famous in hell. And I'm driving my son.
my
I'm thinking,
gosh.
he's like totally thinking now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is that heresy what I just said?
Yeah,
And
so-
then I
So
went
if you
to
want
the
to sell this book
scriptures.
to a demon,
Yeah, I went to the scriptures and saw that there were people in the Bible that hell, the seven sons of Sceva, were like,
Yeah.
Jesus
Yeah.
we know, Paul we know about, but who are you? And when
Yeah.
I read that,
Wow.
the Holy Spirit said, do not become a who are you. Your church needs to be famous in hell
Wow.
by making Jesus famous on earth.
Wow.
And that's where we began that series on just like, hey, here's what we're talking about, guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not talking about politics. We're not talking about becoming the donkey or the elephant. We're talking about becoming the lion.
Right.
And then I said to our church, are following the lion, but the lion isn't quiet. The lion roars. And because the lion has the roar, the elephant and the donkey bow at the feet of the lion. And so I said, I think as the church, we've become silent. And we've let one of the parties lead, or, podcasters lead.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan has
That's
become our
powerful.
teenagers'
I
pastor.
know.
Or
It's crazy. Wow, that's powerful.
And we've had people leave our church because we've had these hard conversations with our church and preaching messages that are very, very strong. But so funny is we just kept obeying God in it. And almost every single person that left has come back.
Can you speak to that? Just for pastors listening, I mean, we have these conversations with pastors all the time. They're like, what is some of the, yes, obedience to the Lord, but like some of the keys you guys found, like, because there's pastors who are like, I want to say that, but
yeah.
how do you stay out of the culture wars? Because
Yeah.
the issue, part of the issue for me is like we obviously
Yeah.
are unapologetic about the Word of God. We're
Yeah.
unapologetic about these issues.
Sexuality, yeah.
I think that we have to be able to say, hey, how do we approach this theologically? How do we approach this pastorally?
For sure.
How do we
Yeah.
approach this culturally?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's all these layers. There's layers to it in that there's a pastoral, a theological, and a cultural approach. I'm saying that
Yeah.
is that. So I'd be
Yeah.
right on board with you. This isn't
Yeah.
an argument. Some of what probably has turned me off is some of this what feels just like they're just involved in the culture wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Become another.
preaching against something
Yeah.
rather than an invitation. Even this issue of marriage or the gay marriage issue, all that type of stuff, that God actually has God ordained something for you to thrive. It's for your best.
Yeah.
It's a father who loves you, who's inviting
Yeah.
you into
Yeah.
a life of abundance and blessing. And so therefore, I'm going to speak truth to you because this truth is going to lead you to
Yeah.
freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This truth is actually going to lead you to a life of thriving. And then it kind of those falls into this thing where it feels like we're painted into a corner,
Yeah.
and now I'm just screaming at the oppressive nature of what's trying to take. But does that make sense what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And so then it kind of gets into this culture wars thing for me.
Yeah.
And my big issue, and you guys have never done this, is my big issue is when pastors call out pastors. That's the part for me where
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, you've
No,
lost
it's not
me there.
building. Yeah, it's not
So-
like go leave the church if they're not saying this about
Yes.
this thing
Yeah.
and this area and this.
And I think
So
you need,
how have you guys navigated that piece? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because you guys you guys are more than we are. We're in a suburb that's it's probably, it's not all Republican, but we're in a suburb that's a lot more, we're in a
Yeah.
suburb outside Sacramento.
Yeah.
You guys are in downtown LA, which has got to
Yeah.
be,
Or more
imagine
liberal.
New York City.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it is
Yeah.
creatives.
Oh, Portland, yeah.
It is like these guys for sure. It's Hollywood. It's
Yeah.
all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So how have you kept
It's
it? My
a
point is this:
family.
I think there's something stirring in the hearts of people that say,
Yeah.
"I want to preach truth."
It's true,
I
yes.
don't. But this, and people may disagree with me on the culture wars thing, where I just am like, we're under attack. Therefore, we've
Yeah.
got to go. I got to speak truth because we're under
Yeah.
attack.
Yeah.
I think the first thing I would say is the family. So, my daughter's sitting here with us on this podcast and the side. I have two other
Who,
kids.
by the way, has an album she's released
Yes.
with called Brave Gin.
Brave Gin.
Brave Gin on
That's awesome.
Spotify, Apple
Yeah.
Music. You can get it wherever you want. I just listened to some of it. It was phenomenal.
Oh,
How old is she?
She's 12.
12
12.
years
She
old.
sings on it. Powerhouse.
That's incredible.
Go look it up. Spotify, Brave
Brave
Gin.
I think like with our kids, like every one of our kids hears different, and they're at different ages and different stages. So if every conversation that we have to have of truth with our kids, it all can't happen with all of them at the same time in the same room with the same wording. So our daughter who's 6, we're not talking
Same intensity, same wording. Yes, it's interesting.
if it's a family. So I think the church is a family. So it's not being deceptive to say, okay, that's not for that age child yet,
That's good.
that conversation. It will be. I think that the problem we have is just saying it never will be. I'll just
for
leave
sure.
that child at 6. No,
or
we're hoping
again,
they grow.
I'm not going to say it because I'm afraid. Like,
Yeah.
I think when we're making decisions because I'm afraid of something, I'm afraid
Yeah.
of backlash, I'm afraid of people leaving.
And our
so when
kids,
my
we don't treat like
motivation
that.
is
or you'd spoil them.
fear,
Yeah.
Instead
I'm
of
not-
conviction, you just need to have a conviction that
Yes.
this is something you
Yeah.
have to speak on. That's true. Years before this, there was a lot of people speaking about a lot of issues that we did not. But there was something that we felt a
Yes.
strong
And
sense.
I think some of it is a show for people outside the room. The people that are doing it like, you need to leave that church, or you need to. It's almost like a show that they're filming to see who can be the boldest. And I don't.
Wow.
With my personal family, I don't try to put them on display the things they're growing in. I try to keep that. That's a family thing I'm working through and growing through. And I think the difference is, if we have a fear of the Lord, we also love people, because He loves people.
yes.
So it starts with having a fear of the Lord and listening to Him over everything, over your own feelings. But when we don't do it because we have a fear of man, then I think we miss the true freedom that could come to someone's life. And I think people are just waiting for you to be raw, real, and honest,
Yeah.
but in the context of walking with the Lord in it and listening to Him.
We had this conversation a while ago that I actually heard from somebody else. You gave me credit for it yesterday around immaturity and rebellion
Yeah.
look the same, but you don't approach them the same.
Yeah.
So as a leader, you have to be able to know, is this rebellion right now or is this immaturity?
Totally.
So part of it for me sometimes is, because I do love that we're having this conversation right now, and I think anybody, I mean, you're in LA.
Yeah.
So I love that you guys are actually unpacking how you've navigated it. Because there is so much tension, I think, for people to go, what am I saying? Or,
Yes.
I don't know anybody in our circles that's actually saying it's not the truth. They're trying to figure out how do I engage it pastorally, culturally, theologically.
Right.
Anyways, but I think sometimes for me when I see it is probably just the social media aspect of it, but like just such harsh statements at believers who I think are just immature believers. I don't think all of them are like high-fisted, rebellious, I know what the truth is and I'm refusing to do it. I just think they're immature. They're either caught up in podcasts, they're not critically thinking, they've got some wound somewhere, they're just immature.
Yeah.
And I think part of it for me is I was talking to somebody about this because I said, the problem for me is Jesus doesn't talk to me like that. And I have real areas of immaturity in my life.
Amen.
I have areas.
First amen.
That's supposed to
And
amen.
the
there.
Lord is stern with me. He's stern with me.
Yeah.
But there's a kindness and a gentleness still
Yeah.
in his approach to me. And he's not yelling at me. I don't know how to describe that. So sometimes for me, I'm like, I don't know. This is not how the Lord speaks to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I want to speak to people like that.
Wow. Yeah,
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So kind of like somehow going like, I'm going to bring pretty hard truth that you don't want to hear. Am I talking to immature people? Am I talking to rebellious people? Am I talking to a mix of them?
And a
How
lot
does
of
the
our
Lord
church
speak
is
to
like brand new
Christians.
believers.
It's the immature, right?
Like we got 150 just last Sunday that got saved.
Yeah.
Like that's how many people
On a
are
Sunday
getting.
morning.
So you're
Yeah.
Who have been radically discipled
Who
by a
are
system
like
in the
not
world.
like Christian in their past.
like,
yes.
how dare
You know,
do
they're
this?
like-
who would
How
say,
dare you?
who have been taught that that's hatred, that's bigotry,
Yeah.
that's
I mean, we
right.
have to rewire
Yes.
all these people. So you've got to be so patient in how you do speak truth in love and timing of it and and not just speaking on these hot topics because they're hot when you have failed to talk about other topics.
Yeah.
Like if
That's good.
we started our church with, we're going to always preach the truth. So when we go into, we step on toes. That's kind of like how and so I think
Well,
it's
at some level,
important that we're
because
not,
the Bible steps on toes.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the Bible is offensive. It
Yes.
can be Jesus. What he said is, eat my flesh, drink my
Well,
blood.
blessed
That's
are those
offensive.
who are not offended.
Yeah.
Like he is constantly
So-
talking about
Yeah.
if you don't get offended,
So
you're going to
just-
find blessing.
Yeah, you can't just hit certain things and go hard and go out of nowhere. And you've been just preaching all the bless me sermons. So it does take. I think you should navigate this with pastorally with someone else in your congregation. Where you live, I believe, if you live in Texas, you got a different audience than you have in downtown LA. I'm sorry, somebody might argue that, but we.
I don't know who would argue that.
I mean,
Texans are like,
do you know what I'm
yep.
saying? You could go, you say it a certain way there, and then you could say that person could say it in our congregation, and I'd have the whole group leave. Our whole church would walk out. So you just have to. It's not a one size fits all for every church.
We've learned in our context is to make sure you're in the right room of the house, speaking about what you're speaking at. So I think for us, like we even started a podcast, and like we go even further on that
Yes.
podcast because we have time.
Are you trying to promote your podcast on
No.
my podcast right now? Is that what's happening?
Shameless
Is that what's
plug.
happening right
I
now?
just think it's such a
I'm just
good.
kidding. What's it called? What's it called?
Format. No. I'm not talking
I do
about
wanna hear it.
podcast.
Tell me what it is.
I don't need it. I'm just saying it's such podcasting.
Yes,
is
yes.
such a good room for deeper, more.
to go
Layered,
apart.
nuanced.
You can talk
yes.
for longer.
Yes.
There's no one that gets up and yells or walks out.
Because
You
they're
can just
choosing to be in
develop
that
a
room
thought.
with you,
Exactly.
which I love.
And and whoever comes in that room actually wants what you're saying and wants to hear that further thing, and they're ready to live it. And so we don't mind if people leave, even if our whole church got up and walked out.
Sure.
But we've learned, I think,
I mean,
what
that would
we've
be
learned.
hard.
That would be hard, but
that has- yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't love it.
yeah, we've learned a lot in the last 11 years in how we handle what happens from people's response. And I think that difference has made all the difference in the world of people that recently left and ended up coming back because of that word that you gave me of Jesus handled Peter and Judas two different ways, but both of what they did looked exactly the same.
Yes.
And one, he says, go and do what you're going to do. And he hangs himself.
Yes.
And the other, he says, when you're done, repent, turn and strengthen your brothers. And Peter ends up preaching the gospel. And Jesus chases down Peter and finds him fishing again and loves on him, even though he just cussed out Girl Scout cookie girls at the campfire and ran and wasn't there at the cross. Jesus didn't address all that. He just kept loving
him into ministry.
he pushed him right into ministry. And I think that's the difference between immaturity and rebellion. And you have to handle rebellion right. If you handle rebellion like it's an immaturity, it will destroy your church.
Yes.
And if you, because that's also what we've done in the past. We haven't handled the people that are causing a rebellion the right way. And then also, so if you handle Judas like Peter and Peter like Judas, you're going to mess everything up.
Wow.
And then we've learned now that if we handle it the right way, we leave the door open.
It's powerful.
When someone leaves, so that when they want to come back, they don't come back to a closed door. They come back to an open door.
Which is called family.
It's called family.
Exactly. I love too. You're talking about I think it could be hard to not then start to pastor in reaction to the people who leave. That you're like, well, they left, and we'll keep loving, and just let our actions speak for themselves. I think that's really powerful, and
they're not rejecting you.
Yeah. Oof.
They're rejecting a word that you gave from the truth. And I think when you think they're rejecting you, at least I respond out of rejection and then reject them. Okay, you're rejecting me, I reject you.
Right.
It's
maybe
so
you
hard
can't
not
hang
to
at
take
this
it personal.
church.
Oh,
It's so
Yeah, and
No,
I
you're
think
right. It's so hard not to take it personal, but you shouldn't. But it's so hard, and then that's interesting.
Yeah.
They reject you not because they're rejecting you because it's and then you reject. That's interesting.
Well, that's what you navigated him.
I've done that in the
through,
past.
Banning, when
and those
he had
people never came back.
a breakdown years
And so,
ago. When you had the breakdown, during that time,
Breakdown. Maybe they don't, if they're watching.
there was
they
a
don't know.
breakdown.
Yeah.
Which you should get the book.
That it's in the book.
I'm
we
actually
preach
serious.
about this all the time. Banning was an integral part. If it weren't for you, I don't even know where we would be. You had to stop him. He was throwing up blood in hotel rooms. He was breaking down. You said you need to stop traveling. He goes, I'll just not go to all sessions. And you go, no, you need to stop traveling, and you need to have Christy run the church. And during that time, that's when people had been leaving that were really like sons and daughters.
And I felt rejected.
It was deep, and he felt rejection. And Banning was really ministering to.
In those moments, the devil will use that, right? Those people leaving said, "Oh, I'm going to this church because I like their vision better."
Just brutal.
And then we're like,
which
"What's
to
their
a visionary?
vision?"
To a visionary, you can't tell them anything worse.
Like, oh, and this was like a son or
if
daughter.
you know Jeremy,
you know?
at his core, he's a creative visionary. So you might as
I
well
No one's
we need to
vision is
just
better.
kick his baby down the stairs.
We need to talk about. I mean, I think how many pastors are listening who have had breakdowns, on the verge of breakdown, in the midst of breakdown. What's the book called? Is that the Fearless?
We are
Declare War and Fear.
Declare War and
It
Fear.
talks about this breakdown that I went through, and basically, I was just running, and here's what I learned: you can't burn out in the fire. It's impossible. You can only burn for God when you're in the fire with Him. But when you get out of the fire, that's where you burn out. So you either burn out too far behind God or too far ahead of God. I didn't get too far behind like Jonah. I got too far ahead like Peter. Peter actually burned out because he thought Jesus was supposed to be crowned king before he was crucified.
Yeah.
And so I got it mixed up. The things that I was believing God had was for right now, and we got to do this, and we got to break this door down. And because of that, I was leading by myself. And where God's called us to, we can't do alone. And so I started, it attacked everything else in my body. I was carrying weights I wasn't supposed to carry. And because of that, my body started breaking down to the point where I was having anxiety, depression, fear, stomach pains. I was thinking I was having heart attacks.
Go in the hospital like 3
I
times
would
a
drive
week.
myself to the ER before preaching on the way to church while she wasn't with me because I knew she was mad at me for doing that because it would cost every time I would go. And I just check me out. Maybe tell me I'm not
And I
having.
was like, you're not having a heart attack. And that's the worst thing to tell someone because he is truly
I
feeling
was having an anxiety
pains
attack.
in his chest.
Yeah.
He's feeling numbness and all these things are happening to him.
The more you tell someone with anxiety, just
Walk
get
it
over
off.
it, the worse it gets.
I did not do
And,
good with that. I was
yeah.
learning as
Well,
I...
to be fair, it's very hard to understand.
It
and
is
it's
hard to
very hard to
understand.
know
Yeah.
what's going on. Let me ask this real quick.
The
So
pastor of Fearless Church was having.
yeah, there you go. Say the book title again real quick so people can go get it.
Declare War on Fear.
And let me ask this real quick. It's fascinating because there's only been twice that I've actually told somebody, dude, you like where I want to be encouraging and I'll give input or wisdom where I can, but there's only been twice where I've told you were on your last leg. Another guy, I just was like, dude, you got to do this, and I was a little bit more stern in it. But I remember you really going like, dude, if I take time off, the church is going to it's not going to make it. What did you learn? Because I'm very fascinated by this. So maybe people aren't completely at the spot where they're like, I'm not going to actually physically make it if I don't take time off. That's where you were. Yeah. But you still had something in your head that said the church won't make it without it. What did you learn in taking a break? What did you learn about Jesus in the church, your role there, your wife, all of it?
Yeah, I gave Christy a higher role in the church because the church ran better when I was gone. All the stuff that was a mess ran better. I learned that her job was very hard in helping look after the kids. She was watching the kids a lot. I was working on the church a lot.
And then he's like, can we trade again? Because I don't like watching the kids. I said, no.
I couldn't do the kids. I was breaking down with the kids. I was like, can I just go back to the church? No, I learned the love of our church. I mean, they literally... I was traveling all the time to make ends meet. We weren't really paid by the church, and so we were paid by going and getting an honorarium. And so I had to cancel all those dates. And the church took up an offering so that we could survive. I learned how much they loved us. And also it gave...
They care about your health.
They care about my health and the longevity of our church. It wasn't 30 days that we had said. It was as long as it took to get better.
Yeah.
Because in that 30 days, I actually got worse. Yeah. And then you said to me, hey, it's not 30 days, bro. I just said that to you. It's when you get better, you're going back. And
he wasn't going to take 30 days, though. Like, it was just to get you at 30 days was a wrestle.
30 days was probably just the letdown. I mean, that's like...
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you got a sozo when we realized...
started stressing me out because I had 30 days. I only have 30 days to change my whole life. And
I've actually heard... No, I've heard guys talk about that. Yeah. The best sabbatical is like... Well, it might be longer, but 4 months. Because the first month is just complete trying to come off the thing. Then you have to... But then they say, but the last month is just gearing up to come back. So yeah, when you take only 30 days, if you're really taking a break, because you're in the mode you're in, you're just thinking about coming back the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think just the things that God had to work out in me. I mean, I learned so much about myself and how God made me, and that I'm a feeler. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that. Probably on this podcast they have, but that a lot of things that I was feeling weren't my own, that they were the environments that I was in. Yeah. And God was allowing me to feel that so I could minister to people. And
it's called the prophetic.
The prophetic feeling.
There you go.
Yeah. And it was what Jeremiah had. He was a weeping prophet. It's a gift where you might say, I feel like I'm going crazy.
My wife won't go stay. She doesn't want to go to San Francisco. She doesn't want to stay in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I mean, she has, but I'm saying
visit,
because she doesn't want to go. Like, I'm like, let's go hang out in San Francisco for the weekend. Because she gets into the environment and then it's not fun.
Yeah.
Because it's all of that stuff she just begins to feel.
Yeah, I learned that through that I have that gift and that it can be used for the kingdom. It's a gift that's different, but God can use it.
But to not recognize that and be pastoring in LA.
Yeah.
I was downtown. Well, my son was depressed. Remember, Brave was like saying, he would be 4 years old, 5 years old, and be like, Mommy, I want to die.
Whoa.
At 5 years old. We're like, what YouTube kids did you watch?
What?
You know, give me that app.
We're like, you have a good family hall. We're like, what's going on?
But we learned he was a feeler.
Yes, he's a feeler.
And we were living in downtown. So we actually moved out of downtown.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's weird because I can feel the difference in the cities. And I thought everyone can feel that. But it was something that only I was, maybe a few people feel.
Yeah.
I thought it was just that the freeway looked different, or like, there's the beach over
busier,
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was the environment. I was living in the war and fighting in the war. And God's like, I need you to come out so you can fight in. And so, in our son, I had learned to not handle it, but to balance it. But our son, at the age he was, we had felt the Lord say, he can't understand this yet, so you got to get him out. And so when we took him out of that environment, it's like he never has said that again, those words. Like, he would walk into restaurants and
tell you, it's real.
Start crying, there's demons in here, or something crazy, stuff like that.
And you also learn that your church will be fine, and the Lord's building it. And,
exactly.
Well, the only thing is
the
Lord's.
Yeah.
The only thing I got to focus on is building myself in the Lord, not building the church for the Lord.
Yes.
And then when I build myself in the Lord will build the church, because he's waiting to build it. Because he's going to hand it to me and I'm going to help steward it, but I can't handle it if he's not going to build me.
It's amazing. Did you, and you was this when you stepped into the role you're in now in kind of running things?
No. I did it for that season, and then he kind of went back. My kids were real little, so I was just in that season. Just lately, recently, because my kids are a little bit older, I'm able to step in a little bit more. He can dream and be released in that avenue, and I can run some of these, boring meetings.
Isn't it amazing how long it takes before you really actually figure out your leadership personality, your leadership lane, and you're okay with it?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I'm so
amazing
thankful
how
that I
long it
have
takes
a wife that's like, hey, it's okay that you're not good at everything. It's okay that you really are bad at these 3 things. I can be good at those, and we're a team.
We're a team, yeah. I mean,
I feel that at home.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we're similar in a lot of areas. We're polar opposites in some areas.
Yeah.
But I just always think like, man, it makes us such a better parenting team.
Yes.
I think, dude, if I had married myself, my kids would be a wreck. If CJ had married herself, kids would be a wreck. But we didn't. We married, and so we bring so much more strength when we just recognize that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really quickly, and we're going to wrap up. Tell me, you mentioned this morning, you actually love your preaching, engaging, great word, unpacking scripture.
You're talking to Christy.
I'm talking to Christy right now. I'm
Yes.
pointing at Christy. Well, Jeremy, it could be Jeremy too. I love Jeremy's preaching. I want to ask 2 things real quick. One is, tell me the journey of getting into preaching for you. 2 is, how do you lead as a woman in a man's world, in that sometimes I see either with women, even in preaching style, they kind of like, well, in order to kind of be accepted, I got to just kind of preach like a man, or I have to lead like a man. Just
so I
quickly
preach
tell
like
us.
a man, Benny? Is that what you're saying? I've just.
Well, I will say nobody's been sending me clips of you, so I don't know if I don't know if maybe your dad needs to start sending me more clips.
Wait, but the first question was
just your journey into preaching, and then your journey into also being you.
Journey into
leader.
preaching. I mean, I hated the thought. I had so much fear, and I didn't want to ever. I never craved the stage. I never craved the spotlight. I never wanted to have a microphone.
Wait. But you want to go to Nashville?
No, I didn't want that. That was scary for me. But I felt like I'm supposed to be obedient to God. Maybe I'm supposed to sing. I had this.
Gotcha.
So pre-singing, I didn't start singing until I was like 15. I didn't know I could even
singing's
sing.
different than preaching.
Yes.
Obviously, yes.
Singing's different. So right when I got comfortable singing, I ended up getting comfortable with that. And then we got in youth ministry, and then he said, "Hey, I'm going to be out of town. I need you to preach." And I said, "Absolutely no, I'm not going to do that." He said, "I'm going to help you preach." And actually, the sermon I preached today it's been morphed millions of times.
Yes.
But that was the crux of that was when he helped me write my first sermon.
Are you
and
serious?
I preached it. And it used to be called Destiny's Child. And Destiny's Child. And
it did.
Man,
the single ladies.
I just think you have to. There was times I was trying to figure out my path and how to preach and how to do it, and tried, and I don't want to shame anyone. Sometimes you're looking at preachers and trying to figure it out at the beginning, and I would copy things and I would write things and try to put things here, and people I looked up to. But then, my husband has been very instrumental in helping me just settle in the anointing that I have, and that as a woman in ministry, it's not just a man. In the Bible, women didn't just lead women. Women led men and women in powerful moments. And Deborah, and there's all these prophetesses in the Bible, and God can use women just as much as men, and He did in the Bible. And so I think I just had to find my anointing and be okay with that, and not try to be anyone else, because I know it's going to just lessen the power of God on my life. So yeah, I think
not crave it, not like but
I do enjoy the results of what I say. I never wanted this. Like we went in the car and lyrics like, "Are you excited?" And me and him said, "We're excited, but Mommy never wanted this. This is hard for me. You just ask my flesh. This is not easy for me, but I love what God does because of my yes." And so this is, today was a byproduct of your. So that's what I love.
Love it.
And so ministry is definitely not glamorous. It's not fun. It's fulfilling. We tell people all this time because people come to us and say, "Are you having fun?"
I asked him this morning, "Are you having fun?" I asked
What
Jeremy
I
this
said
morning.
to you.
And I say,
I'm
we
fulfilled.
smiled, and we would be like, "Yeah, it's so fun," and thinking it's so fun, getting gossiped about and people betraying you and not having enough money to pay the bills. It's so fun, and we
You
didn't
asked the
understand why we
shepherd,
weren't
"Are you having
fun.
with these stinky sheep?"
And we go, you know what? It is not fun,
Yeah.
but ministry
Someone said
is
that to us. I don't even-
fulfilling.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
good.
and it was like an unlock.
We unlock. Okay. Like preaching may not always be fun or doing what you're supposed to do, but don't look for it to be fun. I mean, if you want to have fun, go sell ice cream.
Yeah. Well, you know who does have fun? The guy that never wanted to quit. That
Yeah,
pastor.
but
He's
afterwards I
having
said,
fun.
"Dude,
He's having
probably
fun.
watching
He's having
You
fun.
really paid him out now.
I said,
she
"Dude,
was getting
I
spicy.
can't
It's my
believe
friend. He's just.
I got spicy with him, and then
he's
at
a
the
bro
end he
kinda
goes,
guy.
"Well, I want afterwards." He said, "Well, once I was laying on a couch depressed for a month." I go, "Why didn't you say that?"
I
would
will
say-
say this. So there are some guys that are just positive.
I would say
They're
that.
just
If you-
like uber positive, and I'm
Yeah.
around them
Wanted to
going
quit,
like,
though?
"Am I just this critical in life that?"
They haven't
but they're
been
just
watching
like,
enough
They're just
Joe
looking
Rogan.
at the
If you
world
wanna-
like
if
it's
you're the
just.
one to
Well,
quit,
no,
you're
just
not doing
be
it right.
real. If you were depressed, just say, "I may have not felt like I'm going to quit."
Can I add something to what
Yeah.
she's saying? Because for pastors out there that are watching, or pastors' wives that don't preach yet, but they're trying to talk about that conversation and they feel like that's a part of their church. For us, there's been many times where Christy will say, "Why don't you just preach this? Like you already, you do it this much better or whatever this." And often God's brought me to the thought of like our house. So our kids hear something from me and hear something from her. It could be the same thing, but they hear it completely different depending on who says it.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
And we've had this conversation of like, it actually doesn't matter.
what you say.
It's that you say it.
He
Yeah.
said it's not what you say, it's what you carry.
Yeah, it's what you
And that
carry.
really
And so
helps.
you're the mom of the house. So
Yeah.
it doesn't even matter if you say it perfect. It doesn't matter if you say it with
There's
a
also in
preacher's
local
arm.
church, I would say this because it's
Yeah.
seen this with my wife. My wife's
Yeah.
predominant gift is not preaching.
Yeah.
She's just reps alone. I have a lot
Yeah.
more, but there is something that's received differently when she speaks. But I would also say this: local church has a ton of like forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't the right word.
Yeah.
But we think
Grace.
think that they're looking for the furtick message, or they're like these, and this is the local church.
True.
They're like, we love this community. We love our pastors.
Yeah.
True.
They're
We love
waiting to amen
We
you.
love here coming on Sunday. And they're not
Yes.
like, it's not like patronizing, but they're not necessarily looking for the same level of package that we feel we have to deliver every week unless they're going to walk out the door. They're like, this is our community. We love this. We
Yeah.
love coming and hearing the word of the Lord together. So I do think sometimes you need to take some of that pressure off.
pressure
They're
Yes,
off.
my dad's
looking-
like, every Sunday does not have to be a home run.
No.
You could just
Bannon
go.
says base
just
hits still
take
move the game
Yeah.
Take a
forward.
base hit,
Yeah.
and you got him.
And that church is mostly base hits.
Yes, just talk to him. Just talk.
All right. Well, listen, here's what I'm walking away with. One is Lyric is on Brave Gin. You got to go get that on Spotify. Here's
Oh
the
my
ads. Here's
gosh.
the ads that came out in the
This
podcast
is
today.
sponsored by
Jeremy has
Declare
a book.
War on Fear.
Declare War on Fear
Is it
that
on
you need to
Amazon?
get.
On Amazon?
It's everywhere
It
books
is,
are
yeah.
sold. Come on now.
DeclareWarOnFear.com.
Okay, DeclareWarOnFear.com. So those are the
What's
those
their
are,
podcast called?
their podcast.
Wednesday night Bible study. Is
There
what
we
do.
go.
We do it on,
All right,
on,
all right.
on Wednesday nights.
And
I
then
love that.
and then we've got Awakening Youth Conference that you need to come to every year in March.
Let's
in March,
go.
yeah.
And then we haven't even mentioned the pastors conference or all this type of stuff. So
We're the unpaid YouTube subscription.
we're just
here's all the ads
we're just
before.
giving ads out there. So guys, it was so great to have you. Thanks for opening up some of your story and just sharing some
Yeah.
stuff. It's been really, really great sitting down with you. So thanks for being the first pastoral couple on the podcast together with us. Just
Wonderful.
You set the bar so high, nobody else can want to come
She
on
didn't
now.
pay me
so.
out much on it.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
We did.
I've been
We
good.
love you guys.
Actually, she did when she said you broke up with her like an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we started
You
the whole
brought
thing
it
out
up,
talking
though.
about how dumb you were when you were
You
21.
know, the redemption of the Lord is good. The Lord redeems.
All right. Good having you guys.